Hey everyone, this is Rangas back for part 2 of my tutorial series for Crusader Kings 2. Now one thing to note, I didn't actually end up going with the character that I created in the Ruler Designer. I just didn't save it, but that's fine. I really just more wanted to show you how to min-max if you wanted to get the best traits at the lowest skill. Like there's actually a way that you can get like 80 skill point, or 80 attribute skill in certain things like stewardship, but that's another thing. That's another story for another time. That's really taking it to an extreme. So you'll remember we were talking about attributes and traits last time. 5 main attributes, and then 2 hidden. The 2 hidden aren't really going to be part of this particular tutorial session. It's just not particularly relevant to what we're doing here. Maybe we'll end up talking about some of them later, especially fertility, when I start talking about having kids and whatnot. But for now, we're just pretty much going to be focusing on these numbers here and how they affect your council. So you'll remember you have 5 traits. This is your personal score, and you'll remember I mentioned that there's a state score. So that's off on the right here in the parentheses. So this 11 that we have a base of 7, and we're gaining 2 Marshal from Zealous and 2 from Brave. Simple enough. That 22, it's taking our 11 and adding 11 from our Councillor. The formula for each of these, for the state, is your personal skill, your personal attribute, plus half of your spouse's, assuming you have one, so it's always good to have one because they'll give you a good boost, and also all of your Councillor, the relevant Councillor. So for diplomacy, that would be your Chancellor. Now, we talked about last time what these do, so let's get into what exactly your Councillors can do. If you go up here, the first button here that looks like a crown says Council. Click on that, and you'll be greeted with this page. You'll have 5 Councillors. Your Chancellor, your Marshal, your Steward, Spymaster, and Court Chaplain. These names might change dependent on your culture. So like if you're a Greek, your Steward becomes your Scholarios, that sort of thing. Your Court Chaplain would be an Ecclesiarch. It just depends. But they all fulfill the same function even if they have a different name. And you'll notice, just like over here, they're color-coded with an icon. So blue with the scroll is diplomacy. And you'll always have displayed up here that particular character's skill in diplomacy. And you'll see you'll have a lovely little tooltip here that says with the diplomacy skill of 10, Archery is considered a competent diplomat. Over here, same deal, only commander. He's considered a decent administrator at 8. Just like your own personal skills, you really want to have higher than 8. 8's like the bare minimum of what you want. So Spymaster, he's still decent, but he's not great. But you do kind of want 8 or better. So, now each of these grant different bonuses to the person, not even to you. So your Chancellor, obviously he uses the diplomacy. Now there's this one thing, if you look into the files, it's called dignity, and these grant, being a Chancellor or whatever, grants these characters dignity. I have no clue what dignity does. I've tried to find an answer. I can't find one. Please, if you know what it does, leave a comment down below, and I'll add it in an annotation. And of course, I'll give you credit for that. It also gives them an opinion modification with you. Also, it'll give them the salary, prestige, and piety. So for dignity, your Chancellor, Marshal, and Steward get 0.33 dignity out of it. Your Spymaster gets 0.1 dignity, and your Court Chaplain gets 0.15 dignity. Again, I have no idea what that is. The opinion modifier across the board is plus 15. Now bear in mind, if your personal diplomacy is horrendous, that is what is being used, not your state diplomacy, to give you whatever the opinion is with this person. So it's entirely possible for that plus 15 to be offset if you have really low diplomacy. Now salary, they gain money, which you'll see over here. You have this tooltip. Because we haven't started, they're not showing any increase here, but this should be plus 0.10. And that's across the board on all 5. Now, some of these also grant prestige to the person. So, again, these first 3 here, these grant... I'm sorry, I may have mentioned, all of these get plus 0.1 salary. But these 3 get plus 0.015 per month prestige. Spymaster gets no bonus to prestige, and the Court Chaplain doesn't get prestige either, but he does get piety in its place, which is 0.015. And you'll notice up here we have this too, so this is representing salary, or however much money you're making. This is prestige, this is piety. We'll talk about these more in depth later, as how they relate to you, the player, but for now, just know that it gives them those benefits. Now, you'll notice this button here, with the sword and shield. If this is blue, they can lead troops. If you raise an army within the province, they're probably going to end up being a commander in that army. So if you click it so it's red, they are forbidden to join, to lead armies, which can be useful. Sometimes you want your Marshal to be able to, because he generally has one of the highest Marshal scores in your realm. But it really does depend on the situation. Do note, if they are leading an army, they cannot perform a job, which are these things here, at the same time. It's too much for them to do. They can't be in 2 places at once. Now, in terms of selecting, you have this appoint button, and it'll show you all the available ones, all the available people. So we have, generally, you're going to have an adult man. There are a few exceptions to this. First off, your Spymaster can be your wife or your mother. But like I said, though, if you select your wife, you're only going to get the intrigue, the Councillor bonus, not the spousal bonus. I know in the Charlemagne start, if you're playing as Charlemagne, you can select your mother, and she's a fantastic Spymaster. So I usually recommend her right from the off in that start. Pagans, so that's just a religious set. If, with the exception of the Aztec and Tengri faiths, can appoint female court chaplains. You can't do that. It's most Christians. The odd duck in the Christian set is the Cathar heresy, which is a heresy of Catholicism. They can select anyone as a woman across the board. Doesn't matter. Anyone can be a can be a councillor. So then there are some characters that can just be flagged. They'll spawn. There's the first one that pops to mind is the Joan of Arc event chain, which you'll get, which will give you a woman with crazy high martial, who, unlike any other woman in the game, will be able to lead armies. Again, this is excepting Cathars. Will allow her to lead armies and become a councillor. So if you get her, you probably want her there, although you'll probably get a slight malice with some of your vassals for having a female councillor, but I don't remember that, honestly, and I haven't had that event fired for a couple of patches, so that may have changed, or I might be misremembering. Now, if you're Orthodox or Miaphysite, your court chaplain must be a bishop. You'll notice here, I can select this bishop, I can select this guy here, he's nothing. So, but if you are going to go for one of those religions, just know that you're going to be limited in that way. Now, for Muslims, the court chaplain is known as either an imam or a mullah, depending on which branch of Islam your character subscribes to. He must have, remember we were talking about education traits, he has to have that learning education lines, one of those 4. And here's the important part, they serve until they die. You cannot replace him, unlike other characters, or other councillors. The only way to get rid of them is obviously to kill them, or you can imprison them if they become incapable, or if they convert to another religion. So, let's get into it a little bit for each councillor and what exactly they do and the bonuses they give. So, for the Chancellor, you have these 3 different missions. They will always have at least 3. They'll always have 3 missions. Some of the mods there might be more or less, but that's another matter. In vanilla, you're only going to have 3. So, for Chancellor, you're going to have improved diplomatic relations, which, if you select that, you'll notice anything that's not your territory will be available to you within range. And that will, if you succeed, it'll randomly select a count level or higher Chancellor. Character in that province, and it'll grant you a 4-year plus 30 opinion modifier. And here's the cool thing, that can stack. So if that event triggers 3 times, you're going to have, let's see, 30 is 60 is 100 plus 120 with that character if it triggers 4 times, 90 if it's 3, so forth. Now, if it fails, it's the same deal, but instead of a plus 30 modifier, it's a negative 20. But it's always going to be a counter at higher level title or character. Now, you also have Fabricate Claims. This one is very, very useful. I highly recommend it. Again, this one actually allows you, I don't know why, but you can fabricate a claim on your own demands. I don't get it. But what you can do is plop him somewhere, another county that you want, and he'll fabricate a strong, uninheritable claim, which will allow you to declare war on that person to claim it as your own. We'll talk about claims more in a later video, probably the military one, because that's probably where it's most relevant. But also know that that's also a great way if one of your vassals has a tract of land that you want, you can actually go and revoke it, and the only person who will have a negative opinion modifier with you is whoever holds that, or held that particular title. Because you have a claim, nobody else will care. Otherwise, you'll get some tyranny in there. Now, not only will this work on counties, but it will also work on duchies. It won't work on king-level titles, kingdoms, or empires, but counties and duchies. So if it's a duke-level character that you're spying on, or you're trying to fabricate claims on, 70% chance of fabricating a claim on the county, and a 30% chance of fabricating it on the duchy. Now, if you have them going there, don't just sit and wait for the duchy. If the county one pops up first, take it, because then that 30% shot becomes a 100% shot of getting a claim on the duchy. Then you can press the whole thing, which is fantastic. Now, if you fail, there is an event chain that the lord in the relevant area can just decide, oh yeah, we're going to try to kill him, or oh, we're going to bribe him, this being your Chancellor. So that is the risk there, and you'll notice if I do this, it'll give me a it's supposed to, I don't know why it's not. Oh, here it is. Okay, so noble fabricated, claim fabricated, or noble infuriated. You'll notice here we'll also see this improved relations, sabotage relations, and it'll give you the percentage point to figure out when how likely it is to happen. Now the last one here is sow dissent. So what this one does is it gives a negative opinion modifier both ways between the person who's the target and their liege. So they'll like their liege less, and their liege will like them less. If you fail, your Chancellor will be discovered, and you'll get a negative opinion with that sender. And that pretty much covers the Chancellor. Generally, you do want him to like you. You always want all of your Councillors to like you, but especially your Chancellor and your Spymaster. They can cause some real hassles for you if they don't like you. The next one on the list is the Marshal. Now, this is where it gets kind of interesting, because there are certain ones that aren't available to everyone in here. Certain actions. So there are actually 4 different jobs that he can perform. It just depends on your government type, basically, at least for him. So everybody has suppress revolts. This can only go in your area here, and it'll give you a plus 1% chance per skill level of imprisoning characters in the province. So you'll notice he has 11 skill, he has minus 11, or plus 11 arrest chance, and it also gives a minus 1% per skill revolt chance in province. So again, 11 skill, minus 11% revolt risk. Train troops, and this will work not only in your demands, but also in any of your vassals as well. Train troops, which is one that I tend to favor using a lot, it gives you plus 2% per skill levy size within that area. So you usually plop that down in your capital, because that's where you're going to have a massive amount of troops anyways. So it's going to buff your levy. And then it's also going to give you a 5% skill per skill reinforcement rate. So if you lose troops, you can plop them there and they'll regenerate faster. Now, if you succeed, you'll notice there's also the possible outcomes down below. Levy reinforcements, which will grant you a 50% reinforcement rate for 1 year in that province. So that levy reinforcement rate of 55% is going to go up to 105. Now, failure rate. There's a failure option which infuriates a noble, which will anger a vassal who's in that area with ambitious or deceitful traits. And you'll get a negative 200% reinforcement modifier for 2 months. Or for 6 months, rather. So, not good. We'll talk about organized tribes first, or organized raid first, because we have it available to us. This is only for tribes. If you are a tribal leader, you will get this. If you are anything else, you will have another one, which is research military tech. But for organized raid, if you succeed, you'll get some event troops. You'll get 3 stacks, each with 2.5% of your realm levies. There are actually some constraints on that. You'll get at least 100 per stack. At most, you'll get 3,000 per stack. And those have to be used to raid within 5 months, or they'll be automatically disbanded from you, and it'll cost you some money. So that's something to be cautious about. Unless you know you're going to be raiding, probably don't want to do that. Now then, there is the research military tech, which again is not available to us right now. At a later point it will be once we get rid of tribal. But that'll grant you a plus 5% military tech spread rate per skill level. We'll talk about technology more in depth in probably two videos from now. Now, success. If you get a success on it, a local lord who has 8 or more martial skill, and either 7 or more diplomacy or else gregarious trade, will have improved relations, and you'll gain 50 military points to spend. Again, we'll talk about that later, but just suffice it to say you can boost these, and you'll notice your points are listed here. If you fail, your Marshal has a 75% chance of being wounded, or 25% chance of being maimed. Wounded is better than maimed. Wounded will go away and give him a higher prestige, so it's better for him. Maimed will cause a whole mess of trouble and will actually lower his martial score. So onto the Steward. This is another one that has several different ones that he actually has 5 different options available to him depending on your type of leadership. So we'll talk about them in order that's listed here, and then we'll list the other ones. So you have Settle Tribe, which is available only to tribal leaders. If you plop him in a county, you can only do this, like you'll see here, my culture is Irish. If my capital here were, say, French or something, I could do this, plop him here, and on success, which is 0.67% per year, he'll go there and actually change the culture himself. If you fail, he'll end up getting wounded, 2.43%. Next one, you have Oversea Construction. This one is available to everyone. You get a minus 2.5% construction time per skill level, so you'll see here we have negative 20%. On success, he gets a permanent modifier, which is, they call it Master Builder, which makes his construction time in the province he's in go down by a further 5%. And that even keeps that trait, and he'll take it back with him to wherever he goes. So that can be good. It's very good, in fact. I actually didn't know that until I looked it up when I was coming up with the stuff for this Let's Play. Now, if he fails, a local noble will sabotage the building, and it'll decrease your relations with that vassal, and it'll also increase the build time by 30%. So that would offset that, so it would make a 10% longer build time. So if you have a higher amount, you'll still end up with a bonus, but it'll just be a smaller amount. You'll see here we also have Build Legend. This is another one that's available only to tribes. You get plus 0.1 prestige per skill level per month. That goes directly to you. On success, you'll earn some troops, and just like the organized raid, it's the same exact math as to how it's calculated. 7.5%. And that goes that has to be used in I think it's any old war. And if you don't use them within a year, they'll be disbanded, and that'll cost you prestige. Now, the only other ones that we have that aren't listed is normally you will have collect taxes listed here, where we have settled tribe, and that will give a plus 2.5% tax per skill level in that local area, that local county. So generally plop that right in your capital, and it'll give you a nice buff. So you'll see, let's see, he's got 8, so 2.5 would be 5, would be 10, would be 20%. 20% higher taxes, if I'm doing my math right. If he succeeds, you'll get bonus money. Everybody likes bonus money. And that'll amount to 50% of whatever your annual income is. And if you ever want to find out what that is, you can just click the shield, and you'll see your balance here for the year is 1.14. So you would get half of that, which honestly isn't much. You'd get about, what's that, 57 cents? Now, if you fail, or if he fails, he's chased by peasants, and he can either be wounded or killed, and you lose 10 to 15 prestige. Which, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, is a pretty small hit. Now, another thing that happens if he fails is the peasants will be angered, and it'll increase the revolt risk, and it'll annoy a local lord, which will, of course, give you a negative opinion modifier. Now, the only other one that isn't available to tribes, and is located over here normally, is the Research Economy Tech, and that gives you a plus 5% Econ Tech spread speed per skill level. None of tribal leaders do not have the ability to really spread their technology. They're really limited, so you kind of want to get out of that quickly. Now, onto the Spymaster. This is probably one of your most useful, along with your Chancellor, these two. I'm going to warn you right now, keep him happy. You want him to like you, because if he does not like you and someone is plotting against you, he is likely to join their plot, and he gets a crazy amount of plot power because he's your Spymaster. So always be careful. Don't appoint someone who has a negative 100 opinion with you. It will not end well. So you have several options here, and these are the same no matter what your government type is or anything like that. So you have Scheme, which just naturally gives you, just passively gives you plus 1% increased chance of detecting plots in progress in that province per skill level. So I normally plop that right in my capital just to do that, just so I can find people who are plotting against me. If you do not have a Spymaster, you will not detect plots, so you really, really, really want to have one. Now, if he succeeds, you'll notice you have a 10.13% chance yearly of a plot being uncovered. Then that just tells you exactly what you think it does. Warns you that there's a plot, and you can do something about it. Now, if you plop him in your vassal, he'll get 11. He'll have an event that'll fire that'll allow you to discourage that vassal from joining a faction. So that can be useful if you're having a problem with factions. You can just plop them down. I usually put them right in whoever the faction leader is, and just that helps lower their war trigger chance. By the same token, if you are a vassal and you have a faction, you can use that same thing with another vassal, and they have an event to potentially join your faction. So that one kind of cuts both ways. And if he fails, he can be attacked by thugs, get wounded, all that fun stuff. Build Spy Network. You get a plus 0.5% skill per skill increased plot power. So if you're trying to assassinate someone and you're having some trouble getting some skills going, some plot power going, you might want to just move him to wherever your target is, and that'll give you an increase there. By the same token, it'll also, on success, give you a chance to blackmail a male homosexual ruler. I never really found much use in it, but nonetheless, there it is. And also on success, you can accuse a ruler of corruption and try to find them. It won't necessarily work. Again, I don't really use it that much. I mainly just put them wherever long enough just to increase my plot power until I succeed. Now, study technology. This one is available to tribals, unlike everything else that involves technology here for councillors. So what you can do is you can pretty much drop him almost anywhere, but he has to have a higher. It has to have a higher tech than your capital. So right now at the beginning of the game, the only one that really has a high tech is Constantinople. So you can put him there, and tech will spread from the target to your capital. And the speed at which it does it will be based on the skill. I don't know what the math is on that, but regardless, it does exist. And now here's the cool thing. If you want to, say, put all your councillors into your capital researching tech, which will then, of course, allow your spread rate to go, that will actually stack with that. It works in unison. So you can really get going. You can get cranking if you really want to. Now, if you have a success, you'll gain 50 points in a given tech field. So you'll see you have military, economy, and culture. You'll just gain 50. And if you fail, the ruler can discover that your Spymaster and has a chance to imprison him. Now then, other things to bear in mind. It's useful if, let's say, I'm involved in a war and somebody calls in Wessex and I want to know what's going on in Wessex. I can just use either build spy network or study technology and plop him there, and he'll not only remove the fog of war, like you'll see here, all these are kind of brighter, and everything else here kind of looks like it has clouds over it. You can't really tell what's going on. You can see what the political line is, but that's about it. That'll remove it and all the ones around it. So if I put it in Kanakta, these four, really, will be revealed as well. So that's very useful there. Okay, on to the last one. We have the Court Chaplain, who has 5 different abilities, 5 different jobs. First off, he can proselytize. This is available to everyone. You can just plop him down in any county that either you or your vassals own. And actually, there is an exception to that, but we'll talk about it in a minute. And on success, a vassal or courtier will convert to your religion. That tends to be pretty high frequency. You'll see here it's 13.51% yearly. Now, there's also a chance to convert the whole county, which is lower probability. Here you see 8.01%. On success, if you plop him down in a pagan, independent ruler's capital, he'll have a chance to either tolerate or imprison your chaplain. If he decides to tolerate him, there will be an event chain for him at some point to allow him to convert to your chaplain's religion. So, especially if you see heresies popping up, get your chaplain away from whatever job he's doing and start trying to get rid of those heresies before you start having religious revolts pop up. You have... It's not listed here because... Actually, improve religious relations is, so we'll talk about that one first. This is available to everyone except Muslim characters. You can go in any county, really, that has a bishop or, temple holder. And it'll improve religious relations with that particular local ruler. And just like the improve diplomatic relations, it can stack. It's a 2-year plus 40% opinion. And also on success, it can decrease relation between a priest and their spiritual leader. So if I have, I'll just pull up my county here, this bishop, I can make him like the Pope less, theoretically. If I use this improved religious relations here, here, in my capital, it'll lower his opinion, which means he'll like me more, which will actually increase his taxes to me, or his likelihood to pay taxes to me instead of the Pope. Generally speaking, you want to plop him, if you're playing a Catholic character, put him in Rome. Get the Pope to like you. It's always a good thing. Now, other than that, you'll see here, for tribal characters, there's the Build Zeal option, which can only be done in your county, and I think it might work in vassal counties as well. I haven't really played enough as tribals to really experiment with it, but it gives you plus 0.05 piety per month per skill point. And on success, you get event troops just like the ones for the Stewart and the Marshal. Is it Stewart? Well, regardless, the ones we were talking about before that allow you to gain event troops. It's the exact same deal. You have to use them in a war within a year, or else they disband. One trick with that is if you do have them and you're coming up on that year mark, and the war if war finishes, it'll automatically disband. But if you declare a second war during that first war, they'll stick around. So that might be a good trick if you need to take care of a lot of wars right up front. You have a whole mess of troops. May as well take care of them at the same time. Other than that, for basically everybody except tribal characters, there is the Research Culture Tech, which gives you 5% per skill culture spread rate. And on success, he'll find a great philosopher, which will give you an event to either gain money or to gain 50 culture tech points. Now, the only other one which is available to Muslims only is Perform Charity, which decreases the revolt risk in that province by 1% per skill level. And on success, you'll gain 15 piety. Also on success, you can improve relations with a vassal of the same religion. On failure, he'll be attacked by a mob, being either wounded or killed. Or he might embezzle money from you, in which case you can either pardon or imprison him. And just remember what I said, your court chaplain, if you're a Muslim, cannot be fired, so if you have a court chaplain that you like and that you don't like and he embezzles, you can imprison him, and then you can replace him. So that's one trick to bear in mind there. Okay, so next time we are going to talk about, foci, and ambitions, and that'll kind of give us some, that'll finish this up for the most part with this character portrait. We might touch on claims as well, I haven't really decided yet. But please, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Obviously, if you have any questions, please post down below. And like I said before, if you know what dignity is, what it does, please let me know, because now I'm really curious and I want to know myself. So that would be great if you would tell me. So anyways, thanks for watching. See you guys tomorrow.